stop everything, because the ink on the custody deal wasn't even dry before Prince Harry detonated a bomb so explosive it shook palace walls from Windsor to California. For years, Prince Harry had believed that the toughest storms in his life were finally behind him. The custody deal was inked. Lawyers had stepped aside, and it seemed as though a delicate sense of calm had finally descended over the family chaos. Yet barely days after the agreement, reports emerged that Harry had leveled shocking accusations against Meghan and Prince Andrew, igniting a firestorm that nobody saw coming. What could possibly have driven Harry to speak out after a deal designed to protect the children? The details are staggering, and they pull back the curtain on a crisis that has shaken the royal world to its foundations. Archie and Lily's custody situation reached a critical breaking point on February 3, 2026, and what unfolded behind those gilded palace gates was not a disagreement. It was a full-scale constitutional panic wrapped in betrayal, secrecy, and whispers of the unthinkable. Buckingham Palace confirmed that the matter had escalated into a full-blown emergency, and insiders say the speed of events left palace officials scrambling as though history itself was threatening to repeat. According to official sources, both children were formally removed from Meghan Markle's custodial control after what was described as a serious and alarming breach of responsibility. But here is where it gets darker, because according to insiders close to Harry, the Duke was not just alarmed, he was enraged. He allegedly accused Meghan of orchestrating what he described as a calculated erasure of their children's royal identity, and in a twist nobody predicted, he reportedly dragged Prince Andrew into the narrative, questioning why certain palace advisors connected to Andrew had remained silent during what Harry believed was a brewing crisis. The dominoes began falling at dawn when a sealed legal document was delivered directly to Windsor Castle, and that single envelope, thick, stamped, urgent, would ignite a chain reaction that ripped through the monarchy's inner circle. Sources close to the Royal Child Welfare Office report that the contents of the envelope immediately triggered panic alarms. Just days earlier, on January 31st, Meghan allegedly withdrew 7-year-old Archie and 5-year-old Lily from their private schools in Santa Barbara without notifying the UK liaison team, the schools, or even the court-appointed mediator responsible for overseeing the children's welfare. California school administrators flagged the withdrawals as urgent, sending shockwaves across both sides of the Atlantic. An internal alert labeled "No Show" triggered immediate concern. Why had neither child returned for the spring term? No transfer paperwork existed. No new school had been designated. There was nothing, according to sources. Every attempt to reach Meghan failed, leaving palace officials in mounting panic. And Harry? Insiders say he was blindsided, furious that he had not been informed and deeply suspicious about who else may have known. By February 2nd, what started as concern had escalated into a full-blown crisis. Princess Anne reportedly convened an emergency unscheduled meeting inside Windsor Castle, entering with a red folder stamped "Immediate Custodial Breach." She placed it firmly before King Charles and delivered a message so blunt it reportedly left the room in stunned silence. This was no longer about reputation. This was about two children left in limbo. The folder contained documents that stunned everyone present: multiple canceled pediatric appointments, legal instructions from Meghan's team blocking communication with royal education and child welfare officials, and the shocking dissolution of a $6.3 million education trust fund created for Archie and Lily's future schooling in the UK. But the most explosive document was dated January 29th, an intelligence memo marked privileged and confidential. According to the Royal Intelligence Advisory Group, Meghan had allegedly spent 4 months planning what insiders described as a complete maternal disengagement. The memo reportedly included a non-disclosure agreement with a Dubai-based media financier requesting removal of past family associations ahead of a solo brand launch. And here's where Harry's accusation turned nuclear. He allegedly questioned whether palace silence around Andrew's previous controversies had created a culture where image control trumped child protection. By mid-2026, royal legal advisors reached a chilling conclusion: this was not co-parenting. This was deliberate disengagement. One palace official summarized it bluntly: this was an attempt to erase the children's identity. Princess Anne moved swiftly, authorizing Duchess Sophie of Edinburgh to activate emergency custodial safeguard procedures, preparing formal submissions to both the UK Royal Chancery Court and the California Family Court under shared jurisdiction. Later that same day, Prince William abruptly left an economic summit in Manchester and rushed to Windsor. He was handed the same red folder and reportedly spoke quietly but firmly after reading the final page. This was no longer about Meghan. It was about protecting two children, emotionally, legally, historically. That night, the Royal Advisory Council was briefed under emergency protocol. For the first time in modern history, the Crown prepared to invoke direct structural guardianship over minors of the Windsor bloodline. At dawn on February 3rd, the plan went into action. Prince William, accompanied by Duchess Sophie and Lord Hargrave, entered the royal legal chamber behind closed doors and presented a Level 1 emergency custodial brief accusing Meghan of deliberate abandonment. The case rested on 4 central claims: total withdrawal from parental, educational, and medical duties, alleged preparations to relocate to non-Hague nations, coordinated efforts to erase royal identity from public image, and Harry's alleged inability to serve as sole guardian due to instability, and limited independent resources. At 10:20 a.m., William invoked Appendix 4 of the Royal Succession Stabilization Act, a clause unused since Edward VII's abdication crisis. The provision allows the Crown to assume guardianship when royal minors face displacement or identity erasure. The Council's vote was unanimous. The consequences were immediate. The children's passports were frozen. An image protection order halted commercial use of their names for 5 years. A $12 million restoration fund was launched for their emotional recovery and reintegration. The Royal Guardianship Protocol, dormant for decades, was activated. At Sandringham, senior palace lawyers William and Sir Alan Campbell convened under sealed discussion. Insiders claim Meghan's school withdrawals were not random. They were part of a media strategy tied to a solo parent documentary pitch. But what Meghan may not have realized was that the palace had been monitoring trademark filings tied to Archie and Lily's names. Risk assessments predicted branded baby products loosely tied to Princess Diana's legacy. Princess Anne's response was swift. The House of Windsor would not allow children born into the institution to be commercially exploited. Financial regulators froze accounts linked to a holding company allegedly connected to Meghan. Sponsorship deals collapsed. Spotify and Netflix quietly removed references. International child protection clauses tied to digital identity rights were invoked. Harry, insiders say, was caught completely off guard. His request for temporary custody authority was denied due to unresolved residency and financial instability concerns. A confidential letter delivered by Royal Courier confirmed that custody, guardianship, and protection now fell solely under Crown protocol. Meanwhile, Catherine quietly stepped into a new role overseeing Lily's emotional support plan. A photograph slipped to the press showed Lily holding Princess Charlotte's hand outside Windsor Chapel. No caption, just continuity. Meghan, by February 3rd, was reportedly unreachable. Her team cited privacy concerns, but the silence roared louder than any statement. On February 1st, the courtroom ruling became historic. Meghan was stripped of custodial rights. Princess Anne declared any maternal influence null and void. Commercial deals were dismantled. Trust funds frozen. UK passports secured. The Sovereign Guardianship Directive, last invoked during the 1936 abdication crisis, was activated. And then, the final silent move, a private jet chartered by the UK Foreign Office, landed in Santa Barbara under Operation Dandelion. 2 child welfare officers, a royal legal envoy, and a pediatric trauma specialist disembarked. Document conditions. Ensure compliance. Extract if necessary. Meanwhile, Meghan was photographed aboard a luxury yacht in Doha beside a Middle Eastern media tycoon. To the world, glamour. To the palace, abandonment. Confidential briefings allege she ignored urgent notices regarding Archie's withdrawal from schoolwork and Lily's night terrors. When Prince William rose again before the committee, his words were controlled but lethal. This was not about reputation. It was about deeper decay. He reportedly revealed an affidavit quoting Meghan, "Let the crown raise them. I have an empire to rebuild." That line detonated across the chamber. Across the Atlantic, Meghan's legal team dismissed UK claims as non-binding under Californian law, but Princess Anne coordinated with the Foreign Office to activate a bilateral family protection clause from the post-Brexit Windsor Convention, allowing guardianship assumption abroad with evidence of risk. On February 3rd, King Charles, William, and Anne signed the decree in triplicate. The Crown had assumed primary custodial authority. The monarchy did not shout. It moved. And in that movement, Harry's accusation hung in the air, not just against Meghan, but against a system he once believed had protected the wrong people while failing the right ones. The custody deal had been signed, but the war for identity, legacy, and control had only just begun. And just when the palace believed it had contained the explosion, Harry struck again, this time not with paperwork, but with words so sharp they sliced straight through the carefully polished image of royal unity. Behind closed doors, according to insiders who claim to have witnessed the fallout, Harry's accusations escalated beyond private frustration and into something far more dangerous. He allegedly questioned how certain palace figures linked to Prince Andrew had been allowed to advise during delicate family matters while his own parental authority was being dismantled in record time. To Harry, it was hypocrisy wrapped in protocol. He reportedly argued that the same institution that had once circled the wagons around Andrew during global scandal was now invoking century-old constitutional clauses to strip him and Meghan of influence over their own children. And that comparison, whispered first in private corridors, then echoed in tense strategy meetings, sent shockwaves through the inner sanctum of Windsor. Because this was no longer just about Meghan's alleged disengagement. This was about Harry openly challenging the moral consistency of the crown itself. Insiders claim he demanded to know why emergency guardianship mechanisms had never been publicly discussed during Andrew's darkest controversies, yet were activated within hours when questions arose about school withdrawals and branding strategies. The implication was explosive. Was the crown protecting legacy selectively? Was discipline harsher for those who left than for those who stayed? Palace aides were reportedly stunned by the ferocity of Harry's tone. One described it as controlled devastation. He wasn't shouting, he was dissecting. And in doing so, he forced the monarchy to confront a narrative it desperately wanted to avoid, that internal politics may have played a role in how swiftly this crisis escalated. Meanwhile, Meghan's camp attempted a counteroffensive. A revised legal filing in California accused the palace of overreach, alleging that the emergency guardianship decree was not about child welfare, but about institutional preservation. The petition claimed that Meghan's withdrawal of the children from school was temporary and tied to security concerns, not commercial strategy. But the timing was catastrophic. Within hours of the filing, British tabloids published details of the alleged trademark applications connected to Archie and Lily's names. Commentators framed it as proof of monetization plans. Social media erupted. The phrase royal erasure trended globally. And then came another twist, leaked correspondence suggesting that a consultancy once connected to circles overlapping with Andrew's former associates had provided risk analysis on brand positioning for royal-adjacent minors. The palace moved quickly to deny any institutional endorsement of such consultancy ties, but the damage was done. Harry's earlier accusations suddenly looked less like emotional outbursts and more like strategic pressure. Inside Kensington Palace, William remained publicly silent but privately unyielding. He reportedly told advisors that regardless of how the Andrew comparisons were being weaponized, the central issue remained unchanged: the children's stability. Catherine continued overseeing Lily's integration into structured routines, therapy sessions, supervised education planning, limited media exposure.